Alright, dear ladies and gentlemen, the Woosel is finally back with a Microsoft Flight Sim development tutorial. So thanks for checking out this video. So as you can see today, I want to give you some insights how I managed to place my furry copilot Eugene into the default CJ4. So actually this video will deal with how to integrate your custom models into existing Microsoft Flight Sim aircraft. Aircraft we're using here, as you can see, will be the CJ4. All right, so without further ado, let's get straight into it and check out what we have on the plate for this video. So first things first, you need to do a few setup steps to get this done here, because at the end of the day, it's all about merging glTF files and bin files. So basically unifying your model with the one from Microsoft, from the stock plane. So you need to download a few things, and let's get started here with the first part that we need, which is a part of the FlyByWire A320 mod actually. So what they use specifically here, and what I'm using as well, is a build script and a models.json file, which will go hand in hand, which we'll use also to merge our models at the end of the day. So from a general point of view, as you can see here, I will explain this in more detail. They have their stock A320 files in here, their models, and then they have all their additional models listed here in individual folders. And this script, basically what it does is it takes the standard model and merges it with all your custom models to a new to a new model that actually the sim is able to read again. So at the end of the day, it's a pretty simple operation actually. So it's just merging models as just mentioned. So that's basically all you need to know. So for our purpose, we will need those two files, the build.js and the models.json. All right, so actually what we could do already, we could download those both files. Just download that. Actually what we could do, we could just copy it over. And what I like to do is using Visual Studio Code, making a new file here, and then we could paste that in. So Control A, copy that, and then we paste it back in here. So it's a huge file, but we'll clear out some stuff that we don't need at the end of the day. So let's save that and get our things going here. So for the purpose of this tutorial, you just go ahead and create a new folder. I just called it your new empty folder, right? Wherever you want to create it, it doesn't matter. So I have my Microsoft Dev folder here as a root, but it doesn't really matter. So just an empty folder. I just called the Woosel mod CJ4 tutorial. You see it's empty. And we will just now create this models.json. Models.json. And we save it. So then we have that already done. So let's make a new file, and let's go back here into the FlyByWire GitHub again. And let's also download the build.json. Let's do it the same way. Let's just copy it here, Control A. And let's go here, paste it in our editor here, and we'll also save that into the same folder. So we'll also call it build.js. JavaScript file, and we save it. All right, then we also have that. Actually, we don't need to modify this one here. We'll take a look at that later, because we need to install the dependencies for our Node.js. All right, so I'll minimize that for now. So let's go back. So we have those two essential things that we need for our building process later on. And that's the first thing you actually should do. All right, let's get to the second part here. What we need as well is the Microsoft Flight Sim to Blender to Microsoft Flight Sim add-on, also from the FlyByWire guys. So also on the FlyByWire GitHub, you find that. You just download the whole zip here, and basically then you extract and you just copy here the IOScene glTF MFS to your add-ons folder in Blender, in your Blender installation directory, right? So just copy that, and then you're good to go. Right, that's the second part that we need for importing and exporting models, Microsoft Flights and models. The third thing we basically need is the Microsoft layout generator. So we need that to update our layout JSON with our files and build our, let's say, package then at the end of the day, our mod. So we have everything set up in the correct way, and Microsoft Flight Sim is able to read our modded files and everything. So you download that. So I think it's down here, latest release, and you would just download the layout generator.exe file and just download that. All right, and then finally we need the JavaScript runtime engine Node.js. So we just download one of those tools here, it doesn't really matter, and install that, and we'll run some commands later on then from the command line to build our script. Right. That's basically all we need as a preparation step. So let's go back here into the project folder I just created. So let me just see which one. Yeah, this one here. So this is just what we did, right? We created this empty folder here. We downloaded those two files from the FlyByWire GitHub. And now comes the next important step here. We need to set up our directory accordingly, so we can go ahead and actually do the same workflow like the FlyByWire guys did. So on the GitHub, we saw a little bit how it works. So what we could do right now is, so I'm just taking the same approach here like the FlyByWire guys, right? If you're wondering. So if we go back here, they set up a folder called source, model, and then they organize the structure like that. So we can also do the same now, just to follow the same approach, right? There we have it. So in our folder, let's just create a folder called src for source. Let's create a folder in there called model. And like the FlyByWire guys did it, right? We're working on the interior. We can also click here, as you can see, all the LOD files for the interior are in there. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll work on the interior only for this tutorial, but you could also work on the exterior. It does not really matter at the end of the day. So what we'll do now is in our models folder, we'll create another folder. Let's call it CJ4 interior. And then let's open up a second window here, and navigate to, let's see here, to my Microsoft Flight Sim. There we go. And we'll drill down into official, drill down into one store, and then we'll look for the Asobo aircraft CJ4, which is down here. So what we'll need for the interior, so we can also drill down here into the interior now. We go to sim objects here in the official folder, airplanes, model, and then you see here a couple of files, of course. And for the interior specifically, we need those LOD files here, right? So 00 to 04, we'll copy the bin and glTFs over here to our directory like that. We can also actually grab the XML here for the cockpit, where all our model info parts are described. You can also copy them over for later. And if we continue with this tutorial regarding animations and stuff, this will come into play if we want to animate as well. But for this purpose here now, let's just copy it with us. So it does not really make a difference right now, but for later, it might be fine, might be okay if we already have it. Good. So then let's go up again here to our SRC. Also here, go back on the right hand side. There we have it set up now that we have our SRC model interior. And as you've seen here on the FlyByWire GitHub, now, for example, you're maybe aware of the coffee cup they use, right? They have a folder called cup, and here they have their bin and their glTF file. So basically we'll do the same. We won't use a cup for this tutorial though. We'll use my my furry copilot. So Eugene bear directory, and in there we'll store then the export from Blender, which will be the glTF and bin file of my model, right? So that's set. That's prepared actually, so we can export our model in there once we're done. What else do we need? Actually, we can now also cut those, and we need also to paste them now in this directory, like we have the structure in the FlyByWire GitHub, right? So we just follow the same approach, right? We set our folder up in the same way. That's all we do. All right. So next step, once we have set that up here, is to update or to modify the models.json file, because we're working with a CJ4 and we're working not with the A320. So as mentioned, the build.js file will leave untouched. This is fine. We take it as it is. So let's open up the models.json, and from a structure point of view, as you can see here, most important stuff we need to check out first. So you can see here on top we have our source files. So basically those are the files that we would read in from our default aircraft, and then we have output as well, so both glTF and bin, and there we have output where the script would output the final file, so the merged file, right? Then we have the addition section here. As you can see how the FlyByWire guys did it. For each object they would merge with the default stock model. They would have an individual folder, individual sections here, individual elements in the JSON to get the stuff done. So there's also a section called modifications, and if I make this a bit smaller here, you'll see that this is a quite huge section which we don't need at all for our purpose. And down here, as you can see, there's all the stuff regarding the exterior model as well. So what we'll do now is we'll just go from here and delete everything that we don't need, which is quite a lot. Let me just do it a different way here to make things a bit easier so we don't miss any stuff here. So let's make modifications a bit smaller here as well. And what we'll do now is we'll just delete. Let me see here that I don't mess it up here. And this closes here though. Modifications. Just check here. Modifications we don't need. So we can get rid of that. And see here, and we can also get rid of that then, like so. I think now we should be good in terms of the file structure again. This looks good to me, I would say. Yeah, I think we are good on that. All right, good. So then what we need to do, we need to set our correct paths here according to our setup that we did here in our folder. So this is our source, right? So we created this folder, CJ4 interior. So we will also do that, CJ4 interior. And what we could do as well, we could then also replace all the occurrences with a CJ4 interior. And as you can see here, the files with their file name, oops, we'll specify like that, right? So we'll do all that. Basically, we'll change here the names, we swap them out like so. And we do that for everything, and we do that for the glTFs, we do that for the bin, and for the output actually. That's also something that we need to take care of. We will create an output, go up here, an output directory, which we then can basically drag and drop easily into the community folder. And maybe we should do that after we updated this file here. So what I have prepared as well, let me just see here. Right. So what we could do to make things a bit quicker, just give me a sec here. Is use this one here that I already prepared. So basically the models.json file should look like that at the end of the day. And for the output file, we'll take care accordingly. So what we need to do now as well is create this output directory. So let me just go ahead and copy this one over to our models.json for simplicity, but you get it right, what needs to be done here, of course. All right, so then we have our models.json set up like we wanted. So the next step is actually now, let me bring this window back here, to set our output directory. So we're doing that the following way. We go in here into the official one store, once again, official one store to the CJ4. And what we'll do actually, we will copy the whole folder from the official directory. So we copy it. Right, here we are in our tutorial folder. There's our source, and we just paste it here. Right. So maybe let's do it like that. Let me open it on the right hand side. So now we have it here. And as you can see here, so I specified my output directory like that. So we should name it in the same way. So then we have a correct path there. So we'll just rename here this folder to Woosel Man Aircraft CJ4, like we did here. And then we do some cleanup actually. So we can remove everything that we don't need at this point. So we could basically remove RTC. We could remove all those here, and we'll just leave it with the layout and the manifest. Sim objects, let's go down there. Can remove the checklist, the panel, sound AI can be removed, and all those config files can be removed. So we are there now with a model and the texture only. In the model directory, as we're only modifying the cockpit objects, we can also delete here the others, the other XML for the exterior and all the exterior and model CFG. So we are just left with those for the interior, for the cockpit model. So then we go back, texture, we have everything in there as well. So we'll leave it as it is for now, which is good. Shouldn't be too much of an issue there. And we are left with that now. Okay, so far so good. Now, as we've set up that and the paths are fine here for export, we also need to take care that once we export our model from Blender, this is the name we'll save it as, right? So CJ4_FO_Eugene, and we will save it then into this folder. Good. So that's basically it in terms of our setup. So let's go one step further and open up Blender. So I'm using 2.92. I think there's 2.93 out at this time of recording, so you could also use that. So as mentioned, I installed the Microsoft Flight Sim import exporter from the FlyByWire guys, as you can see here. So you just need to check it. There's nothing else you need to do down here. So just easy, check it and you're good to go. And let's go ahead and open up my Eugene model. So I will just open my model here right now. And this is the guy. Right, so far so good. So the model is there. And what do we actually need to do now? So you would just go ahead and model whatever you like, of course, right? And what comes with the add-on as well here in the materials tab down here, you can also assign your textures. So that's my albedo texture, there's my normal texture, both are PNGs for now, because Blender is not able to read DDS files. So you would just do all the good stuff, UV unwrap, assign textures, model whatever you like, and then you're finally here with this model, right, at the end of the day. So now what you need to do as a next step is, if you want to merge an object with an existing one from Microsoft, right? So in my case, I want to place this model, of course, in the Copilot seat, because, right, I want to have it in the correct location. So how we are ensuring that we're in the correct location with this model here, and also the correct size, which is also important. So also make sure that the scale is always 1, 1, 1 on all axes for your model. If not, you can select and hit Ctrl-A and apply all transforms. That's very important before you export. Just make sure that your whole model is scaled properly. Or actually, the scale is basically applied. So I do all transforms, so then you're on the safe side. Okay, so how do we get a feeling where to put this guy into the actual plane? So what we do now is we go to File, Import, and then we'll actually import the interior model of the CJ4. So let's go into our folder. As you remember, in our source file, in our source folder, we created a folder called CJ4 interior, and there we already pasted our LOD files, and I will pick LOD00 because this is the most detailed one. We load that in. Takes a few seconds there. And once that's done, you see here a new object coming into the outliner called armature, and then we have all the stuff regarding interior model down there. It looks a little bit like a mess. So first thing we want to do is clear up here some visuals. So I will hide those boxes here. This boxes, the green and the red one. And here we go. So don't be afraid. There's no need to mess around with textures or so, because you don't export this model in one go. You just export your model, right? So this is no combination, no merging that's taking place in Blender. So we just use this model here, this interior model of the CJ4 as a reference where to put our object, right? And as you can see here, I also did this already. So I put my first officer, my co-pilot here, in the correct place on the co-pilot seat. So that's basically done and all set, right? You could also go ahead and place him somewhere else, of course, but I want him to be my co-pilot, so he's in the co-pilot seat, of course. So that's done, right? It's just a reference thing. You just need to your proper location for this is XYZ, and maybe the rotation for this guy, and then you're good on all fine. So then we can actually get rid of the model again that we just imported. Now we can save again, and now comes the interesting part. Now we export our model for the first time. So we go export glTF for Microsoft Flight Sim, and then we could actually go ahead and navigate to our tutorials folder, navigate to source model, and there we have our Eugene Bear. And if you remember, let me bring up Visual Studio Code. We need to put this name here for our export file. You could also choose a different one, right? But it needs to be the same one. So the merging process works later. So I put a copyright in there. Text just can be left empty. Everything else just keep as default and click on export. Right. So now as we check in our folder, you can see that we have now our bin file, we have our glTF file, and we have our albedo and normal map. That was automatically exported by the exporter here, which is very neat. So we have all in one place here, and that's actually what we need in the further process. All right. So that's done. We can close down Blender for now. And what we need to do next is we need to install Node.js. If you haven't done that, so yeah, just download it and install it. I installed it already. So this will be then the final step for our model. So what you could do, or what you should do, so you want this script to be executed in this folder, right? So what do you do here? You click on the path, go cmd.exe, and now once you installed Node.js, you need to install some dependencies first, right? So at the moment, we don't have the Node modules shown up here. We need to install them. So let me just go back here to our build.js. And as you can see here in our build.js, we have some modules that we require, right? That we need. So to install those modules, we go ahead and type npm install, and then we install first fs. That's one that we need. Hit enter. Then we'll install it, and it will create a node module folder with this dependency. What else do we need? npm install path, and the final thing that we need is byte data. So npm install byte data. All right, so we have all those three prerequisites installed for our script to be executed. So that's all fine. We have a package log JSON now, and we have a node module with all the dependencies that the script needs. All right, so we set that up as well. So before we can go ahead and actually merge our models now, what needs to be done as a final step is we need to do a little adaptation here in our glTF object, in our glTF file. So we'll open that as well with Visual Studio Code. And we need to modify some sections here that that are required for Microsoft Flight Sim to be loading the correct textures as well. So as you have seen, we got some PNG files exported. Of course, Microsoft Flight Sim prefers DDS files. So first thing, what we'll do, we'll just switch here over to JSON, because it's actually a JSON, and Control F will look for the extensions used. All right, so currently we have those extensions used, asset optimized and normal map convention. This is what gets exported from the exporter that we use. As we want to use DDS files, we would also go ahead now, let me open up this one here, and also add, this is a little helper file that I know what to replace, right? And also would add this line here, MSFT texture DDS. We add that to this section. And as you can see here, for this specific model, I made this little template because after each export from Blender, you need to modify the glTF file in the same way. So we navigate down to textures. Right there. And here you can basically see textures and images, right? It's referencing the PNGs and we need to take care of that. So Microsoft Flight Sim is able to assign the correct textures and the DDS files that are required. So what we'll do first, we'll replace the textures node with that information here, make it compatible using the DDS files. So source 0, source 1, and down here for the images, you see the norm is source 0 and the albedo is source 1. So there's always a relation from this here, source 0 to this here, and source 1 to this here. So you need to keep this, this sequence, right? Okay, so as you can see, I prepared it here already. So this is my normal, and this is my albedo DDS. So we can just copy that over here for now. Right, and save it. So this has to be like that, and the URI is actually just the file name that you would specify for your albedo and for your normal map, right? Name can be also removed, but I like to keep it just for personal preference. Extras, that's something we need. Also an extension from Asobo. So then we're good and set. Good to go. All right, so then we save that. So as you can see here, what's left to do now from a texture point of view for our model, we need to convert those two textures, the albedo and normal, to DDS files. So I like to do that with a GIMP. So let me open up GIMP as well. I bet you know how it works. You could also use different tools, but I like to use GIMP. So we go down into our source model, Eugene, and let's first open our albedo PNG. And we'll export as, and we'll name that, let's go back here, like this one here, what we set in our glTF file. So I will just use that, PNG DDS, and then allocate export. Then you get a dialog coming up here asking for compression. So I think the best way, best thing to do is go with a DXT5 compression and make sure that no map maps is selected and hit export. So that's done. We do the same for a normal map, same way. And we'll use the name I specified here. Hit export as, and export DXT5, no map maps, export that, and we're good. All right, that's already the step we need to do in GIMP. So as you can see now, we have our bins, we have our DDS files, so that looks good from that point of view. All right, so what else do we need for Microsoft Flight Sim? We also need those DDS.json files for the albedo and for the normal. So what you actually can do, what I did as well, you go to your official folder. So you go to official, one store, and then you go into the Asobo CJ4 sim objects. You just look for an example, and then you go to a texture folder, right? And here you can see actually that each DDS also has a JSON, and that applies for the albedos as well as for the normals as well. For example, this one here. So what I did specifically, I looked for some albedo and some normals I could copy. So for an interior for an interior texture. So what I did, I copied, I think, let me see here, cockpit seat, cabin. I think this one here you could copy as an albedo, and seat cabin norm. So let's copy those two here over to our folder. Eugene, paste them here. And then what we need to do just is we grab here the file name from our albedo and we just use it like that, right? Pretty easy. Copy. And then that's for our normal map. All right. Then we're actually set and good to go from the texture point of view. So that should be it for that. All right, so we have set up our glTF, we set up our textures, so we have the link there. So what is left now actually at this point? So we can now go ahead and copy our textures and JSON files to our output folder. So we go down here, airplanes, asobo, texture, and then we paste them in here. Like that. All right, so we prepared that already. Good, so that's that. Textures are sorted out. Go back into the source folder. We can actually close down now those files here as well. So now I think we're ready to go to build our model. Let me just think about anything that I missed. It's a pretty complex setup, I have to admit, right? But I think we are looking good. All right. Yeah, I think we're looking good. Okay, so at this point, actually, you're able to merge your objects. And as mentioned, we want to merge those with our first officer Eugene that we have set up. So like before, we go into the command line here in this folder. And all we need to do right now is actually type node build.js. So we'll execute the building script, hit enter. Woo, it worked. No errors. That's good. All right. So basically no errors. This means that once we go into our output folder that we specified, it's here, sim objects, airplanes, asobo model, you will see, and this worked out pretty fine, our new updated model for the interior. And you see timestamps, just current timestamps, so that worked fine as well. Okay, textures we already took care. So this is all good actually. This looks fine. So one step now before we can drag and drop this into the community folder though, is we need to recreate the layout JSON and the manifest file. So as we added new textures as well, we need to tell the layout JSON that we have new textures. So how we achieve this in the most convenient way, we'll use the Microsoft Flight Sim layout generator. So like I've shown you in the beginning, where it is, here it is, Microsoft Flight Sim layout generator. And let me just check in the downloads folder, it's right here. So we'll copy that over from the downloads folder into our export here, paste it here. And all we need to do now, which is pretty easy, we drag and drop the layout onto the layout generator. And as you can see, we get some new timestamps, which is fine for layout and the manifest. So you can also open up the layout JSON and you could search for Eugene. And there we have confirmed that we have our new textures in as well. So this worked out as it should. So we're good on that front. Right. You could also get rid of that one now if you like, but you could also leave it. Okay, so we have our model set up, we have our textures set up. So I think we should be good now. And check it out in the simulator. So what we need to do now, which is the great advantage of this workflow, is we just need to copy now our folder here, our export folder, And we'll just drop it here into the community folder of Microsoft Flight Sim. Bam, there it is. As easy as that. All right, and the next step would then be to just fire up the Flight Sim and check it out in-game. So see you there in a bit. And there we go, guys, back in Microsoft Flight Sim. I loaded my CJ4 with my custom Woosel Air livery that I created for the CJ4, which is insanely nice. Kappa kappa. But anyway, look at that. The model is there. Eugene is in the cockpit. Perfect. There he is. Right on the spot, on the seat, like it should, like we did. So that worked out as a charm. Like a charm, indeed. So here you have it, guys. Here you have it. That's the process, how to merge your models with the Microsoft Flight Sim stock models here. The example with the CJ4 like this. Hopefully you enjoyed that little tutorial. Actually, it was a pretty long one, to be honest. It is a bit complicated in terms of setup, but that's what we have at the moment. And that's how the guys at FlyByWire do it. So cheers to them for this approach. So I think it's still an approach that you can follow through the same way. Hopefully it was not too hard to follow. You always have the chance to watch back, of course. And if you have any questions, just leave it down below in the comment section. I try to get back to you on that as well. And as always, guys, of course, if you liked that video, right, smash that like button for your boy Woosel for some more Microsoft Flight Sim development and tutorials. So I'm looking into animations at the moment. So next video might be dealing with animations. So we try to animate this dude like we did for X-Plane back in the day. So some head movement, I think, to get things on the road. All right, that's me for this tutorial. Thanks a lot for watching. And hopefully this helps getting into some more details on the Microsoft SDK model merging and whatnot. So hopefully this tutorial and this workflow was useful for you. As mentioned, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you then on the next one. Cheers and bye-bye, Woosel out.